Now, normally the good stuff, you have to go to bwi.rivals.com to find that and to get the inside information on recruiting. But here on the BWI Daily Edition, we're bringing a little bit out of that behind the curtain, and we've got our recruiting insider, Ryan Snyder of Blue White Illustrated. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on the Daily Edition. Welcome to your first daily. This is super exciting.
Yeah, we need to do this like once a week. That's kind of the goal. I was hoping to be on a little sooner, but July just, kept throwing me one curveball after the next.
Have you recovered? Because I know, you and I were both in deep on all that stuff in July. So how you feeling? You've had about a week now, maybe a little bit less, but how you feeling?
Well, with the Lash Bash ending Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are all pretty busy, and now we're here on Thursday, and finally slowing down a little bit, turning the page to the season. My vacation's scheduled for August 12th. So that's when I really get to kind of check out for a bit. But just recapping the Lash Bash, there was so much going on with that we will take that well into the next week or so. And by the time I get back, it'll be, full grind, ready to roll, building visitor lists for the season. So it never really ends. It's good to have the 2022 class all but finished, but like I said, we're on to 2023 already, and I think that's what we're going to discuss today.
Yep, that's exactly what we want to get into. 5 players to know for the class of 2023. Just so you know, these are not in any particular order. These are just the guys that Ryan highlighted out of the commitments and the guys that Penn State are interested in, the guys that are have either camped or have interest for Penn State. So we're going to get into those guys on the daily today. 5 players you should know for the class of 2023. And Ryan, the first one is one that I think if you were following 22, there's some threads that connect 22 to 23 with Lamont Payne out of the Pittsburgh area, right? He's a corner out of the Pittsburgh area.
Yeah. So Lamont holds 7 scholarship offers right now, and I expect that to rise. I think compared to some of the other guys on this list, you have 20 or so already. The thing with Lamont is just a lot of schools are waiting to get him on campus, or we're hoping to get him on campus, and now, since he only saw a couple schools, they're really just going to wait and try and see some film from the season. So I expect that scholarship offer list to double, probably triple by the time the season's over with. But Penn State hosted him 3 times this summer, came for the whiteout camp in the beginning of June and crushed it. And the staff was already very interested before that. And after that camp, it was, they knew they were going to go all out for him. So he returned then in June, I believe it was on June 22nd, I want to say, somewhere in that range. Had a very good visit then, and that's kind of when we started to realize I think Penn State's the favorite. And then he came back for the Lash Bash, and now I'm fully keeping a close eye on him, we'll say, as far as maybe a commitment in the fall. He has no plans or anything like that, but I know Penn State wants to get him on board soon, basically as soon as possible. And obviously everything on the field is great, but off the field, they think he's a leader. They think he's someone that could really help build this class. He's friends with a couple guys in the Pittsburgh area. Tamir Robinson, for example, he's on his 7-on-7 team, tongue twister, Team Evolve. And there's a lot of top guys on there. So, they want to get him on board for everything on the field and everything off the field. And we'll see what happens. He went to Pitt twice, I believe, in June. Also checked out West Virginia a couple days before the Lash Bash. I expect him to take visits and see games at all 3 of his top schools, or at least what I think are his top 3 right now. I know he's planning to be back for the Auburn game, which obviously will be a huge,
probably massive player.
Yeah, they always kind of have like 100, 120 or so for those games, and I would expect him to be one of a massive group. But also just a great kid. Last thing I'll say about Lamont is he's one of those guys who very media friendly, so I've been able to interview him a handful of times now, and just character-wise, everything that Penn State fans would really like out of a player, Lamont represents that. So on the field, off the field, I think he's a great kid, great player, and someone that Penn State fans should be watching closely this fall.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, I haven't tracked this stuff as early on as you have, but regional schools, it sounds like, that are just getting into Lamont Payne as a prospect with West Virginia, Pittsburgh, Pitt, and Penn State. Not currently ranked by Rivals yet, but 6'1", 170. And one thing I like from his film, as you've seen, is he's physical. He's a kid that is not afraid to beat receivers up to the line of scrimmage, and it's something that I've noticed that Penn State has been, at least that's a trait I've seen in the last couple classes. Jordan Allen from the class of 2022 has been that way. Obviously, Joey Porter Jr., a big physical corner. Is this what they've always wanted to do, and now they're finally able to get these guys, or is this a trend you've noticed as well in the corners that they've been recruiting recently? That's something I've been thinking about, and I've wanted to ask you for a while about that.
I think it's really, that we have seen that a little bit, but I think it's more so just the guys available and who they have a real shot with. And if they're physical, if they're, a better ball hawk or whatever it is, like there are little trends there, but I think it's just more so, hey, we got a real shot with this guy. He's a stud of a player. Let's go all out. But yes, they want physical corners, no doubt about that.
Yeah, and good ball production as well, at least so far on the highlight tape, which is what we're showing you here today on the show. We're not doing any sort of in-depth breakdown of these guys. We're just getting to know them. So Lamont Payne, as far as that goes, again, 6'1", 170. He's a corner in this class. And one last thing on him before we move on. This, again, ties back to the class of 2022. That team evolve you mentioned in Pittsburgh, Tyrese Fearbury is on that too, correct? He's class of 2022 defensive end who's been in and out of the class so far as a commitment, right?
Yeah. Actually, Payne brought Fearbury to the Lash Bash, so there's a good relationship there. Fearbury's only been on Team Evolve for less than a year now, so he's one of the newer members, but whenever you're a stud player and you join a stud 7-on-7 team, you build relationships and friendships pretty quick. And that's what we're seeing with Payne and Fearbury and Robinson and a few other guys that fans will get to know in the months ahead.
So moving on, next on the class of 2023, 5 players that you should get to know. Rodney Gallagher, a 4-star out of Uniontown, PA. Tell us a little bit about Rodney and his profile, because it's not just football, right? He's a good recruit. He's a good athlete.
Yeah, 2-sport athlete, heck of a scholarship list on both sports. So basketball and football. He holds 15 scholarship offers so far in football and another 9 in basketball. And those basketball offers, they're not those smaller schools. I don't want to throw schools out there to be disrespectful, but
right.
Some of those lower Division I schools. It's not that. Florida, Illinois, West Virginia, those are all very good basketball schools who have offered. Pitt and Penn State have also offered in both sports. And I know Penn State is absolutely open to him playing both. So we'll see how it works out. In football, he's currently ranked 59th overall in the nation. As you said, he holds a 4-star rating. And I would expect him to be a very high 3-star, if not a 4-star in basketball as well. So that's whenever you're a 4-star in both sports, you're talking about a very unique player, someone you don't see all the time. You get a handful of those every year. And right now, Penn State has one in their backyard. So he visited, I believe it was June 25th, took an unofficial visit to Penn State. Everything went well. He was also up for the staff's, that was the same date, for the 7-on-7 tournament. And he actually came up, I think, a day early to visit with them. So he spent a couple days here in the end of June. I know Ohio State got him on campus. Pitt got him on campus. And we'll really see moving forward where he starts leaning as far as one sport or the other. He's fully determined to play both sports, and that should be good for Penn State. I'll be curious to see if some other top programs like Ohio State maybe offer for both sports. So, one thing I'm curious to see really, though, is like I've had a couple people bring up that he maybe is leaning towards basketball. And, if some of these big-time basketball schools offer, I'll be curious to see if that piques his interest over maybe playing both sports. So, but a heck of a player, man. Another guy I really want to go see this year, and another good character kid too. I've done a couple interviews with him. Another pretty polished for his age with interviews and whatnot, and family raised him well. He's a good kid.
It's going to be funny watching him play basketball. I just checked out his football highlights, but if he's as physical on the basketball court, he's going to foul out of a lot of games, or he's going to get a lot of free throws. I love guys like this where you see I can't tell if it's just like really shoddy video or if it's a really bad angle or if he grew about 3 inches this past year, because he's all over the place with whether or not he looks like he's 6 foot or not on film. But one thing is for sure when you watch some of this stuff is that he is a tough physical player, and he's got that speed and that athleticism to be a two-sport athlete with some offers. So a really fun player to watch. It's going to be fun to watch him grow as a football player and as an athlete over the next couple of months heading into his junior season. Positionally, receiver, is Penn State looking at him as a receiver or a defensive back? Because he does play both at Uniontown.
Yeah, I think he prefers receiver, and whenever you're a stud athlete like that, it's the player kind of gets to dictate a little bit on where he goes. Obviously, if Penn State wants him at DB and another school wants him at wide receiver, that's a recruiting advantage. So I would expect him to be a receiver at the next level. One thing I forgot to add earlier is he's also for basketball. He's on Team Durant, which is down in DC area, I believe, and they're very, very good on the Nike circuit. So he's playing basketball a lot, and that kind of limited his visits this summer, and maybe that kind of worked out for Penn State a bit that he didn't get out to more schools. But he's just kind of 99th percentile when it comes to being an elite athlete on the high school level. Playing both sports at an extremely high level.
Couple of guys we're going to get to that are have that profile in our 5 players that we are getting to know for the class of 2023. Today here on the BWI Daily Edition, I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. Ryan Snyder, our Rivals insider, with us. Quick break. Ryan, what do you have at BWI today that people can go check out about some of the stuff at the site that if you want to subscribe to Blue White Illustrated, you get the inside scoop from Ryan. So what do you got over at the site?
Yeah, so we're going to have an update on DJ Westlock today. He's the 2022 defensive end, of course, with Fairbury decommitting. Westlock's kind of come back into play. He was always in play, but with the class kind of maxed out, I didn't. Maybe I should have taken him a little bit more seriously, but I just assumed when Fairbury was committed that they were kind of maxed out at defensive end. So we'll have an update on him. Also, Jaden Rashad, 2023 quarterback from California. He came out and visited last week. I caught up with him last night. Another good kid. 2023 quarterback. You notice we won't have a quarterback on here, and that's because I'm still trying to figure out who's that guy. Dante Moore was just here this past weekend for the Lash Bash. Very good player. Kind of think Penn State's going to be top 5 with him, but I'm not sure if they're going to be top 2 or 3. Rashad is a very good player as well. Came out from Cali, so the interest is real, and I think you'll see that in the update we do later today. So Westlock and Rashad, those are the 2 guys we'll be talking about.
So we'll take another dive into the class of 2023, 5 players that you should get to know, and one that has a story and a saga behind him. First off, because his dad's a former NFL player, and secondly, because his brother has his own storyline with Penn State. We're talking, of course, about Josiah Trotter, the 4-star linebacker from Philadelphia. What can you tell us about his recruitment and how all of that plays in?
Yeah, 6'2", 225, St. Joseph's Prep. Heck of a player, already has his schools down to 4, which is pretty impressive at this stage in the process. Penn State, Clemson, Ohio State, and South Carolina appear to be those 4 schools. His brother Jeremiah Trotter Jr., of course, is at Clemson. He was a name that we talked about quite a bit in the last class, although the main discussion from the Penn State perspective is that Penn State didn't offer him. Right. And, he was a top-ranked guy. It definitely raised some questions. And one thing I've learned here in the recent weeks is basically that Penn State kind of admitted to the family that they probably should have offered him, and that was a good thing. They were open and honest about it, and I think that's going to help them with Josiah. Penn State was the first school, I believe, to offer him, and they put the family thing to rest, because as we saw with Nolan Rucci in previous years, not offering the brother has possibly hurt them in the past. So I don't expect that to be the case here. Dad was up this past weekend for the Lash Bash with Josiah, and that was their second visit. Of course, Dad's Jeremiah Trotter Jr. or Jeremiah Trotter Sr. I think you mentioned that earlier, but if not, just want to get that.
I alluded to it, but thank you. That's the proper journalistic thing, is to mention all the important stuff. So thank you.
I've learned over the years a little bit, but was up twice. Great player. It's not going to be easy to get him. Ohio State and Clemson are both going to be serious, and so is South Carolina. I don't want to sleep on them, because he did go visit South Carolina, and he also visited Ohio State. And with his brother being at Clemson, obviously he's been down there before, so won't be easy. I don't really have a timeline for Josiah. He doesn't seem to be in a rush, although he's already narrowed his schools to 4, so he's ahead of most guys his age. So we'll see what happens. Just like the last two guys, though, man, very, very fun kid to talk with. Definitely has his head on straight. I can say that really about all five of these guys on this list. They're pretty mature for their age, more mature than I was. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, it helps when you've got a lot riding on some of the decisions you're about to make. You and I, when we were their age, it was more like, hey, let's go have fun.
Yeah, I was just trying to get into Penn State Altoona, so I didn't have Clemson offer on the board.
Yeah, for sure. Where in Philadelphia? He's from St. John's in Philadelphia?
St. Joseph's Prep.
St. Joseph's Prep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm still getting to know some of the Philadelphia schools, and that's really my question is, Penn State obviously in 2022 has done very well in Philadelphia. Are they making inroads there, or is it more kind of the balance has shifted in the state of where the talent is and they're just going to where the talent is? How is that sort of thing playing out on the recruiting trail?
Philadelphia was down a little bit the last couple of years, but I think looking back, there were a few guys that Penn State probably should have pursued harder. Tyke Smith, of course, the safety who was at West Virginia, now at Georgia. It's a great example. I mean, he's somebody who I think if the staff could do it over again, they would have went harder. And it did feel like that may have hurt them a little bit with a few of these schools. Not so much St. Joseph's Prep, but a few others down there. So, but Prep's always loaded. You know, of course, Kyle McCord, Marvin Harrison Jr. came out of there. Those are two guys who I think Penn State fans look back and they say the staff really missed out there. But those were also two guys where I never really expected them to end up at Penn State. So those recruitments I don't really hold against the staff. I think they were always kind of leaning heavily towards Ohio State from the very beginning. But lots of top schools down there. Of course, Abdul Carter just committed from LaSalle. We could go on and on about Northeast, Ematep. And Josiah is going to definitely be somebody that Penn State hopes to get out of Prep.
Yeah, and as you've seen here on the highlights, one of the things I like about him is he is just a monster. He hits really hard. He plays downhill. He plays like, and I know I said this with Christian Driver, he plays like his dad played that position in the NFL, so surprise, surprise. One thing I did like is that there were plays in coverage because, again, that's a really tough skill to have, and he did show those on his highlight tape. So some early things when you're looking for context clues from young players, I like the fact that he does seem to have some good coverage instinct. So he's not just that 6'2", 225 thumper. He's a guy that, again, if you're being recruited by Penn State, Ohio State, and Clemson, you're probably a pretty darn good all-around player. So another guy to keep in mind, Josiah Trotter. We'll move on to a guy that there's a lot of guys on this class that are fun to watch on film, but one guy, Luke Montgomery from Ohio. Tell us about the 6'5", 260-pound athlete from Ohio.
Yeah, listed as a defensive end on Rivals, but he's going to be an offensive tackle. I expect Rivals to get that updated soon. So he came in the fall for just one of those self-guided kind of tours. And from that moment on, we knew Penn State was going to be very much a mix. His dad's very open with the media. So is Luke. So he's somebody who, we've been in touch with quite a bit. He's up to 32 offers now, although he's already narrowed it to 12. And unlike a lot of these guys, well, actually, that's not true. A lot of these guys took visits, but not as many as Luke. Luke, I believe, took over a dozen visits this year, and he's already narrowed his list to 12. I think it was actually the total visits were 14 or so. So the majority of his top 12 he's already visited, and that's good for him moving forward. He was back on campus July 25th, and that visit went pretty well. He spoke very highly of Phil Troutline, James Franklin. Long story short, I expect Penn State to be top 5 here. But he's another guy it's not going to be easy with. Ohio State offered not too long after Penn State, and he's already been to Columbus 3 times. So I would probably lean towards the Buckeyes at the moment. One other thing I'll add, though, is his brother is a very good up-and-coming quarterback from 2024 class. Ryan is his first name. And Penn State actually offered him the other week when they were here. He camped with Yurchich and had a good showing. So we'll see what happens there. He's another stud player who has offers from all over. Penn State will get him back on campus. I wouldn't be surprised if he's here twice this year. The Auburn game, of course, is something his family already has highlighted. So very good player. It's not going to be easy, though, for Penn State with this one. I think he's there's actually one thing I should clarify is we could have put 5 offensive linemen on this list. The O-line class is very deep. So even if they do miss out on Luke, there's a lot of other guys that they can go after. Of course, they already have Birchmeier committed, who was arguably their number 1 target the whole time. He's more of an interior guy, where Luke's more of a tackle. But won't be easy, but Penn State definitely off to a good start. And right now I see them being top 5. Whether they can be top 2, one of those 2 schools he really decides between, only time will tell.
And we saw how the entire class of 2022 kind of led up to deny Dennis Sutton, the 5-star athlete that committed. It's all the little pieces that add up to something big, and starting with Alex Birchmeier, as you mentioned, is a great spot. Do you think that will play a factor with some of these guys? Because as you mentioned, it's going to be a tough competition with highly recruited players going to the top schools, and having that guy in your pocket, how much does that help in this class, especially with a guy like Montgomery that's going to be playing potentially alongside Birchmeier on the offensive line?
Yeah. I mean, he has a relationship with Alex, from what I understand. I would say that Alex is closest with Antonio Tripp out of McDonough. And then Kobe Keenum, he's a player from Alabama, actually, who came up and took an unofficial visit. Those are the 2 guys I know Alex is very close with and recruiting hard. Luke, whenever you have 32 scholarship offers, you're going to be getting to know recruits at all these schools, especially Ohio State. Their 2023 class will be recruiting them hard. So yes, it helps. They've met each other before. They're friendly. They text and whatnot. But I don't think it'll be something that really makes Montgomery think hard. Like I said, friends, but not. I don't think it'll be a big part in his decision, personally.
Gotcha. Okay, I know we're running out of time. You got to get going, and we saved the guy who has position versatility for both sides of the ball, Nicholas Harbor. Wow, 6'5", 225. Tell us about his track, too, because that big, playing defensive end or tight end, and what sort of speed does this guy have? Yeah,
Archbishop Carroll in Washington, D.C. Harbor is the player. So first off, he was up for the Lash Bash, okay? And in the week or 2 leading up to that, I had a lot of people like, man, this is going to be a guy that really starts emerging. He's already a 4-star player and whatnot. But when he came up for the Lash Bash, then everybody I spoke with was like, this kid is a diamond. This is a player that we absolutely have to have. And a big part of that is what you mentioned with his track skills. So I believe it was July 3rd, July 4th, somewhere in the beginning of July, he went out to the outdoor national meet in Eugene. And of course, to get there, he's already a heck of a sprinter. But he ran a 10:31 out at the national high school track meet, which is, one of the biggest of the year. At 6'5", 220, I mean, that is incredible. I would love to get an accurate 40 time on him, but we don't even need it. I mean, that 10:31 number says all you need.
I'm good
to know.
with that,
yeah. Yeah, that's 99th percentile, man. That is unlike anything you will find in this class. So, but to circle back, he was up for the Lash Bash. Ty Howell, we haven't talked about Ty too much with Jerry Cross already committed, and the tight end room is stacked as it is. But Ty's built a great relationship with Nick, and this will be one that we really watch closely to see if Howell can get him over the line. But he was up this past weekend. Had a great things to say about how he met with the track people too. I think he wants to run in college wherever he ends up. Won't be easy. He has a ton of offers, but one last thing I wanted to throw out there is that his sister graduated from Penn State. So there are some ties to the university. Like I said, already was up for 1 visit. Great start. They got to get him back on campus again in the fall, and then of course into next year. He's in no rush, but this is a true diamond. This is somebody that Penn State offered a while back. They've been on him hard. Now they got him on campus, and I expect them to just kind of take it to the next level with him because they love this kid.
2 quick things before you go. You said Ty Howell, so leaning towards tight end, yes or no?
I think so. I think that, Ty Howell definitely wants him at tight end. I know that. And he's his lead recruiter. Ty kind of does that area, so he has regional and then positional ties. But defensive end is possible. I don't want to rule it out.
Yeah, the one thing you talk about track speed, but football mentality on the football field dominates on either side physically. So all the stuff are there. You said it best. He's a diamond in this class. So those are the 5 players that you should know for the class of 2023. Ryan Snyder, Blue White Illustrated recruiting insider, joining us today on The Daily. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Hope to see you again next week. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.